I really, really do not enjoy finishing most of the time. Every fortnight, or maybe 2 fortnights, I will be in the mood to do fiddly finishing. Other than that, it's a slog. I know many of you feel the same way. I'm not alone in this. We'd much rather be stitching on the next project than finishing the old project, which got me thinking, what barriers do we have between us and finishing? And how can I make those a little bit easier? And one thing that has made my finishing projects so much easier is having pre-cut mat board. I've used these for various projects. I've got them cut by a professional who can do nice, crisp, clean cuts. I don't have to hack away at mat board with scissors or an X-Acto knife. Has been super useful. I use these for like bases. I can use them for ornaments. I can use them for bases for stand-ups. I can use them for little needle books. And I thought, what if I could make some common sizes that would be useful to you for finishing your ornaments, which also got me thinking, aren't we all stitching Prairie Schooler Santas? So I would like to introduce you to the newest Lindy Stitches product, which is super easy acid-free finishing boards that are custom fit to Prairie Schooler Santas. But they can also be used for other projects that you're working on, but most likely ornaments. We made them in 4 different sizes, and I did all the math for you. I did it all for you, so no more measuring, no more trying to remember what your margin should be, no more nothing. Just finish stitching your Prairie Schooler Santa, order the finishing mat board, and follow this tutorial. It's as simple as that. The part about finishing is that it has to be exact, right? You gotta do your math right. I've taken all the math out of the process. You're welcome. So how this works is, depending on what size fabric you stitch your Prairie Schooler Santas on, is what size you would order. There's a handy little chart on the website. The called for fabric will be the small size of the acid-free finishing boards, and you get 2 in the package. So each package can finish 1 ornament. See how this works? Super easy. So the extra small would be for 40 count Santa stitchers, the small is for the 36, the medium is for 32, and the large is for 28 or 14 count Aida. Those of course all translate to Aida counts. Like I said, there's a handy graph. These can not only finish Prairie Schooler Santas, but I think they would be really good to just have in your stash for other ornaments. Totally by a coinky-dink. I was working on my Jingle Ball ornament for this year, and I'll give you a sneaky peeky. But I was like, hey, I wonder. And wouldn't you know, I did not design this to happen, but it fit. It fit on the small, extra small ornament finishing board. So yes, these are super easy. And even if you had them in your stash and the ornament you're stitching on isn't a Prairie Schooler, it's something else, having these smaller sizes to cut down and customize is so much easier than using a huge sheet of mat board and trying to jigsaw your sizes out. All you would need to do is line this up on your cutting board and slice off a centimeter here or a centimeter there to get it to the size that you need. So without further ado, I want to tell you and show you how to finish a beautiful little Prairie Schooler Santa using our new super easy acid-free finishing boards. All right, let's show you exactly how we get to this ornament finish. Here is my Prairie Schooler Santa finished up, and we're going to be replicating this ornament finish exactly, except I chose a different fabric for the back just to make them all a little bit different. We're going to do the same process on this finished piece. So you can see I've used some rickrack for the decoration around the perimeter, and then it's going to be hung by this cording. Now, if you don't like this exact finish, this tutorial will still be great to watch. I'm going to give you some trim options that you might think of other than just rickrack when we go ahead and trim this ornament up. So here's what I have ready to go. This is a very easy process. If you just take it slow, deep breaths. I don't think this finish is very hard. I have my finished stitching, of course. I have some quilting cotton for my back piece. You'll need 1 or 2 scraps of quilting batting. I have my finishing boards, of course. This is the size small because mine are stitched on the called for count, 36 count. But if you need to know which size your finish might need, you can check the website. I have some Lady Dot Creates rickrack in the color Sequoia. And then I have my custom cording that I made with the Krennic custom quarter using the called for red and green in the pattern. If you don't want to create custom cording, this is intimidating, you don't like it, you can definitely use rickrack, you can use a ribbon, there's many other hanger options than the custom cording, but I liked how this looked. Other craft supplies that we are going to be using: your hot iron, of course, have that ready to go so you can iron your stitching and your fabric and anything that has a wrinkle in it. Also, we're going to be using 2 types of glue. This first one is completely optional, but I really love using the tacky spray for one of the steps just to make it clean. It's cleaner and it's also quicker. I really love using the tacky spray. You can see I wrote on mine, no child use, because I was afraid my kids were going to spray this somewhere. But this is optional. You can just use this next glue, which is not optional. You can just replace the tacky spray with this in all of the steps if needed. We're going to use the great old standby Aleene's tacky glue. You can use your own favorite all-purpose glue as long as it's for craft use, and you can for sure use it on fabric. 2 supplies which I find indispensable. You have them in your house and they just make the process so much easier. I learned this tip from Vanna Pfeiffer, who taught me my basic ornament finishing, as she has so many of you here on YouTube. So thank you, Vanna. A moderately wet rag, not soaking wet. You don't want it sitting and getting things wet, but wet enough so that you can continually wipe your gluey fingers off. Very important. I could not finish an ornament without a wet rag. As well as a glass to put your tacky glue in upside down so it's ready to use. You're going to be picking up and putting down your glue many times, and this just saves time so that you don't have to keep waiting for this thick glue to go back to the tip. Step 1 is to iron your finished piece and your quilting cotton. Make sure that you put them right side down on your ironing board. It helps to have a towel on your ironing board just to keep your stitches from getting too squished, and just with gentle pressure and some steam if you want to, get your piece and your quilting cotton wrinkle free. Before I explain to you this disgusting surface I now have going on, now is when you need to decide whether you want just the front of your ornament padded or you want both sides of your ornament padded. I tend to only pad the fronts of my ornaments, but you can pad the back as well. If you want both sides of your ornament padded, then we're going to spray glue both of our ornament boards and put them both on scraps of batting. Okay? Now, I'm not going to pad the back of my ornament, so I'm going to spray glue, and then I'm going to put one of my ornament boards on my backing fabric, and I will show you that in just a second. I'm going to take these away so they don't get spray glued. If you don't have the tacky spray, you can use your regular glue at this point. Just make sure you do a thin application and then you're going to put your batting on. If you don't use the spray glue, then you can just follow along in the step where we start folding and gluing your backing fabric. So this is my disgusting foam board that I always just use. I only pull this out to spray glue in the house so that my surface is protected. This is just like my gross spray glue board. So welcome. Of course, make sure you shake it, and then I'm just going to put an even application over both of these. If you're doing this for the first time, do one at a time. Make it easy on yourself. I have finished many an ornament, and so I can kind of do double duty. So these are now coated in glue. And you can give it a few minutes to a little bit kind of dry so it's not super wet when you lay it down. But I'm going to do one for the front of my ornament. I'm going to lightly press that down into the batting. And then, because I'm not putting batting on my back, I'm going to carefully line up on the back side of my quilting cotton. I have lines on my fabric, which is why I need to be careful, but if you don't have a directional print or it doesn't have geometric lines, then you can just, you know, make sure you have a nice margin around your board because you're going to fold it back. Okay, any pieces that you glued to batting, you're going to go ahead and trim flush to your matte finishing boards. So trim those flush. So this is going to be for my stitching on the front. And I had previously trimmed this one down as well, but if you decided you didn't want batting, if you didn't want a cushy back like me, then you need to trim your quilting cotton about 1/2 inch around your backing piece. Now, if you have a backing that you want the cushy backing, okay, totally fine, and you have your quilting cotton glued down, you can repeat the process, spray glue the cotton batting, and then lay it just like that, and then we're all caught up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and finish the back piece of our ornament, and if this is your first ornament you've ever made, this is great practice for the front, so we're going to go ahead and do the back. This is not hard. Repeat after me. This is not hard. We're going to get our tacky glue out, and make sure you have your handy wet washcloth ready, and you're going to pick which corresponding sides you want to start with. I like to do the longer sides first, and I'm going to do a thin line of glue about 1/4 inch back from the end of my finishing board, and then I'm ever so gently just going to fold it back, and there we go. Now my fingers are gluey and I'm wiping them. Okay, and then you want to go ahead and do the opposite side. Same way, no big deal. See, I didn't put it in the cup. Now I have to... and fold it back, give it, you know, a few seconds to kind of sink into the fabric. Let's do this third side. So I'm going to go ahead and put my glue right over that fabric, and draw a line of glue. Now for the third and fourth sides, when I go to fold them, I'm going to push this in just a little bit because I don't want this fabric tail to kind of, you know, creep over the edge. So I'm just going to push the corner in a little bit, and you will probably have to play with it to get it to where you like it. Now the tacky glue is not going to immediately cement the fabric where you lay it. So it has, oops, see, I got some glue This is not a disaster. You can kind of play with it until it looks good. And you've kind of got that corner off the very edge of the ornament where you're going to see it. Make sure you flip it around and you like how your corners look. So that looks fine to me, and I got a nice straight edge there, so that makes me happy. I'm going to go ahead and do this other side. It's like folding a present, only just a little bit more complicated because we're using glue. Okay, no matter what maneuvers you decide to do with glue and with pressing and folding and pushing, just make sure that whatever fingers you're using on the right side of your ornament don't have glue on them. That's my number one tip. Keep your gluey fingers on the gluey side and your clean fingers on the clean side. So that back looks just about perfect to me. So I'm going to set this aside, glue side up, of course, and it can dry a little bit while we work on the front. The next step is finishing the front. So I have my completed stitching, which has been ironed to my satisfaction, and I have my mat board that I glued the batting to. Now, you're not going to see me doing this step, but I'm going to be holding this up to the light, or you can also use a window. And I'm just going to be making sure that that finishing board is exactly where I want it to be. So once I get it to where it's just about perfect, I very carefully keep it in the exact position I want it. And then I'm going to flip it over and lay it down on your table. I'm now going to trim. I'm going to leave myself a little bit more than I did with the batting fabric just to be on the safe side. I'm going to trim to about 3/4 of an inch all the way around, being sure that I just leave that where I wanted it. I'm going to pick this up again and make sure again that it's right where I want it before we start using the glue. So holding it up to a window or a light, just making sure that it's exactly centered. Okay, I have it pretty much where I want it, but I can tell that this is too much fabric. So I'm just carefully going to trim that down. Okay, again, I'm going to start with the long sides, and we're going to repeat the same process that we did with the backing fabric, only this time it's with your stitching. So deep breath. It's all going to be fine. Remember, this tacky glue it allows you to play with it a little bit before drying, and so you know, some of the Prairie Schooler ornaments, including the ones that I finished yesterday and today, have this little straight line on the edge, which can be an extra challenge for getting it straight. But like I said, you have some play time. So I'm doing all my messy finger glue stuff right now. I'm pulling back with just a little tension, but really not much. You don't need to pull tight. I'm cleaning my fingers off 100%. Yes, and then I'm going to turn it around. Okay, I can see this line isn't up to my liking. It's kind of bowing out a little bit at the top. So keeping my thumbs clean, I'm reaching behind and just playing with that tension on the glue on the background until I'm happy with how straight that line is. I'm going to check my top and bottom margins, which still look good. Okay, so yeah, my fingers behind are gluey. My thumb on top is clean. And I think that looks pretty good. I will say this petite point linen also can make it a little tricky because the dots aren't completely straight. so that kind of messes with my eyes a little bit too, but hopefully it also messes with the viewer's eyes so they can't tell if it's perfectly straight, because I can. Okay. I'm happy with those two sides. Again, going over your linen. And just like we did last time, pulling in that corner a little bit to try to get a nice fold that doesn't stick out. Sometimes it helps to get the corners stuck where you want them and then go ahead and go down the middle. Okay, so remember when you flip it over, you can keep your thumbs clean and you can manipulate again with your fingers in the back. Now, if you're using a thicker fabric like Aida or sometimes Lugana, and your corners get kind of bulky, and you end up with like big bulges of fabric, you know, that are just kind of taking up space, you can feel free to go ahead and cut those. Just remember, just don't get your cut super close to the corner, and make sure that this is glued exactly where you want it before you cut any fabric off. This corner, I think, is getting too bulky, so I just cut extra bulk off of the back. But with linen, I usually don't have to cut it down too much. Just thicker fabrics, they can just really start bunching up in the background. So here's my front, and I'm going to go ahead and clean off my fingers as well as iron out my rickrack. So if your rickrack is all bunched up and wonky, you can go ahead and hit that with a hot iron. Okay, we're now going to discuss trim options. I'm going to show you how to finish with rickrack, and I think if we're talking about Lady Dot Creates colors, I think Sequoia is really the perfect color if you use the called for DMC colors in your Prairie Schooler Santa. Go with the Sequoia rickrack if you want a green. If you want a red, there are two that you might choose between. This one is called Sizzle, and it's brighter, hotter red. This one is called Country Rust, and it's a little more pink. Here's the called for DMC. I'll let you decide. Do you want it to lean more pink? I think it looks fine with both of them. Or do you want it to lean more traditional Christmas red? The more pink is the Country Rust, and the traditional Christmas red is the Sizzle. So if you wanted a red option for your Prairie Schooler Santas with rickrack, those are your two choices. If you would like to use pom-poms, that would be a really fun option around the perimeter. Here's ornament I have finished with pom-pom trim. Really fun. You can again use the Sequoia color. You can see the pom-poms turned out a little more green than the rickrack did. You could also use white, I thought would be really cute. You can check out different colors at Lady Dot Creates, but if you were going to finish this with pom-pom trim, I would go ahead and using very, very light glue, I would leave the pom tape on, and I would, kind of using the same manner as the rickrack we're going to show, but not quite. I wouldn't cut this into lengths, I would just go all the way around. Very thin strip of glue on your backing, and I would very carefully attach the pom tape to that strip of glue, going all the way around and making sure the palms are sticking out, right? Because you want this finish, I hope that's focusing. You want just the palms to be sticking out, and you want the pom tape to be in your sandwich. So yeah, you could try palms that way. Also, you could use chenille, and I found some color options for the chenille. Again, Sequoia chenille would be beautiful. The Sizzle, beautiful red. And then I also found this green, which is a lighter green, called Ogden Grass. Now, if you're going to finish with chenille, I would go ahead and proceed with the other steps of the ornament with your hanger. I'm going to show you how to do that. And I would do this step last, using just a very thin thin strip of glue, and I would go all the way around your sandwich like that. That's the Ogden grass color. So, options, you could also try lace. I mean, have fun. This is going to go on your tree, so make it exactly what you want it to be. So we're going to go over how to do rickrack, and this is probably a little bit peskier than even doing the front of your ornament, to be completely honest. My biggest tip is you have to use, like have to use a very light hand with the glue. So I'm going to be very light-handed, and even, look, I don't like how much glue ended up there. I'm going to take my finger and just kind of thin it out. You want it to be thin because you're putting it on the very edge. At the very end, we're going to kind of smash our ornament a little bit to just get all the pieces to come together. And if you have used more than a very thin strip of glue, it's going to bleed and it's going to goop. It's going to goop. You don't want that. So I'm going to take a length of rickrack, and with my eyes, obviously, I forgot to list your eyes as a finishing supply. I'm going to set this length down in the very edge of the glue. This isn't always possible, but I like to have the scallops sort of end at the corner, if they can. Sometimes they can't, and if they can't, that's okay. So that is on the very edge. You can see I have it peeking out. You can, remember, keep your gluey hands on the gluey side. You can flip it over and see how they look. That looks good. Flipping it back, wiping off my hands, and I'm going to go ahead and cut my rickrack, making sure not to cut my backing fabric. Okay, I'm flipping it back over, and whatever ends I had on the end, I want to hide in the corner. I don't want that next hump to be like coming out the corner where you can see it. You want to hide your humps. So if you do have an extra piece that's just like wagging off into the distance in your corner, make sure you trim it so that you just see some lovely rickrack creeping through. Okay, so that side is done. I'm going to go ahead and glue the opposing side because we want to kind of match the humps. So I'm putting my thin strip of glue. I'm going to take my finger and thin it out. Wipe off any excess because we don't want globs of glue creeping through. Hey, that's our motto. No globs of glue creeping through. Okay, taking my next strand of rickrack, and I'm kind of looking at where the humps were on the other side and kind of trying to mimic that so they're even. Flip it over. Looks pretty good for trimming, so I'm going to go ahead and trim it down. And if you buy a whole package of Lady Dot Creates rickrack, I think you get 3 yards. So, you know, if you get a strand that for whatever reason isn't like doing what you want it to do, then you can just rip it off, throw it away, and try again. Okay, so using my gluey fingers to just kind of make sure my humps are good. Your two opposing sides of rickrack are the same deal. Same deal, same bad channel. So maybe we'll speed this part up. Here is what my back piece looks like. And there's no globs of glue. And you can see the corners kind of disappear into each other. Now see there, I'm going to trim that rickrack because it's kind of sticking out. So that will be trimmed. You can see my other corners look pretty good. I don't want to really overlap the rickrack too much. On some corners it does overlap a little bit, but I don't want to create a whole bunch of bulk in the corners that we kind of have to, you know, glue together. So I will trim that wayward corner. Okay, so we have our front ready to go. We have our back ready to go. You have to make a choice on what you would like to use for your hanger. There are many different options. You can use a piece of ribbon. Here's another piece of ribbon. Remember this guy? You missed him, didn't you? You can use a piece of baker's twine. Totally acceptable. I wouldn't recommend, the only trim I really wouldn't recommend is pom-poms because they're so floppy and nobody likes a floppy hanger. You know what I'm saying? You also need to decide how long you want your hanger to be. I cut my piece of cording to about 9 inches because you're going to want at least an inch, probably like 1.25 inches. You want to be sticking inside of your sandwich to give it extra stability, so I'm going to cut my cording to 9 inches. So we're going to go ahead and glue our cording hanger to the middle of the ornament. So I'm using a generous amount of glue, but not towards the top because I don't want it to bleed out the top. If you need to measure your ornament to figure out exactly where the middle of your ornament is, you go right ahead. I prefer to live on the wild side. I'm trying to match this other one that I've made. I like to live on the wild side and just like totally wing it. That looks like the middle. Just gonna gently make sure that that's happy in the glue. All right, so we have our backing all ready to go. I might trim this down just a wee bit because it's a little excessive. We are at the last step. Are you excited? I'm excited. So I'm gonna put a line of glue around the perimeter of my back. I'm gonna go over that hanger and I'm giving it a good squirt. But again, you gotta be careful because you don't want it coming out the edge. So I'm kind of placing it maybe 1/4 inch from the edge so that when I sandwich it together, it won't go super far and start going out the side. So here's my glue. Admire my glue. I think I'm also going to just put a little glue on top of this cording, and then I'm going to go around the middle to make sure that we're making a nice happy sandwich. Okay. Okay. I think this is too much glue, so I'm just gonna back it up a little bit. Back it up. You are not coming out the side today. No siree, Bob. Okay. All right, now is the moment of truth. Ever so gently and with the most care, and not with gluey fingers, I'm going to line up my ornament and press it down. I don't see any glue coming out. Wonderful! I'm going to go ahead and put a protective, like a towel. I'm going to put this face down on a towel, and then I'm going to put a few books on top, and I'm going to let it sit for at least 20 minutes before I check on it. And that is it. These are ready to hang on my tree. They are gorgeous, and because I'm using the finishing boards, my margins will always be the same from here on out. I won't have to remember what I did. And yeah, the boards made this easier for me, and anything that makes finishing easier for me is well worth it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you find the boards useful for your own finishing supply cabinet. I would love to see your ornament finishes, so definitely tag me on socials if you use them. Happy finishing, happy stitching. I will see you later, friends. Bye!